One. Thank y'all for coming back to the Sunday night symposium. This is not that, okay? This is not the symposium, all right? So this is a kind of a special called town hall meeting. So thank y'all for making time to come back out tonight. We're not going to try to purposely overload you with a bunch of information. However, we have a lot of information, okay? A lot of information this team that we have been just kind of chewing on it, talking about it for weeks. And so we're grateful that we can actually share it with all of you. Some of the numbers you'll hear and you'll see on the printouts and on the display, and you're going to rejoice with them. On some of the other numbers, you may not, okay? And that's okay, all right? They're numbers. We're going to work through them. Scott's going to come up and share a little bit about the numbers. Dan is going to be the first one to come up and kind of give us an update on where we stand with the actual building process itself. Okay, so that's what tonight will consist of, and this is something we don't want to just rush through it for the sake of rushing through it. We're typically done with our symposium at 7. If we are finished tonight at 7, we will leave. If we're not finished, we will stay longer, okay? Because we just want to make sure that everything is communicated and that we are all on the same page, okay? Look at your neighbor and say, same page. Thank you. We want to be on the same page tonight, okay? So I'm going to open up and pray. Dan's going to come up and share. After Dan shares and give you his updates, we'll take time for questions. And then after that, we'll kind of transition over to Scott and his portion of tonight. Scott Hendricks. I'm sorry, I know we got 2 Scotts up here. And so after that, we'll take questions as well. And so we want you to hear from us, and we want to hear from you. So let's just make this a good partnership tonight. Agreed? Amen. Let's pray. God, we commit our time here tonight to you, and we thank you in advance, God, for your presence, dear God, in this building tonight. God, I know you're here because I know you came with me and every child of God that is here tonight. We have you living inside of us, God. So thank you for directing this meeting tonight. God, the building we are standing and seated in right now is yours. God, all that we have, it all belongs to you. So thank you, God, for helping us to manage it well. And God, because I know one day we'll stand before you and give account. So God, thank you so very much for this faith family and the vision you've given to us, and give us the faith to go after you. God, we love you and bless you. And I pray believing, because I ask all this in the mighty name of Jesus. And all God's people said, amen. Hey, just for the record, if you know someone who really wanted to be here tonight, but they could not be here, we are live streaming this. We are live streaming, right, guys? We're live streaming this, so it will be archived. So if you know anybody else in the church that wants to go back and get this update, just tell them just to go on YouTube or Facebook page, and they can see it, okay, just like you have tonight. All right, Brother Dan, please come.
Thank you very much. So I guess we started this project about 1.5 years, 2 years ago is when we initially engaged with an architect. Or actually, we just started. We didn't engage with the architect till probably about 6 months after we started. And the first phase was just, determining what it was we were trying to accomplish, what we were looking for. We did all the schematic design, went through, looked at everything, and then last October, November was when we really started the construction design portion of this, where you're really putting the dimensions together, getting with the architect, the mechanical engineer, structural engineer, everybody that's involved in that. End of April, beginning of May, so about a month and a half, 2 months ago, we received the bid set of plans that we could actually take out for pricing, so that we've been working with a contractor named Avant out in Jacksonville, and we have not signed a contract with them, but we've been working with these guys, and this is probably the route that we want to go. We're very happy with the contractor, very happy with the Barry Underwood, thank you. Barry Underwood, who is the vice president of the company, good Christian man, goes Mandarin Baptist out in Jacksonville. We've talked to him many times over the past year and a half. He's been extremely helpful. But we finally got to the point where this is a pricing set. So these are not the final numbers. We have the opportunity to go back, do some negotiations, talk to them. But currently, right now, we look at these numbers as if we were to build the building right now, this is how much the cost would be. Now, we go back to, we started this process 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Things change in the economy It seems like daily. So whatever you thought was a good number 2 years ago was not a good number 1 year and 11 months ago. And it changes over time. So I'll just give you the highlights of what we're looking at. Once I'm done, feel free to ask any questions about the construction, about the cost, about the different contractors, whatever's involved. I'm happy to answer anything I can. Basically, we have 3 parts to this construction. Number 1 is the actual building itself, the structure, the foundation, the frame, the finishing, everything for the building. The second part would be the site work, which is all of the drainage, the pavement, the tying into the water and sewer. And then third part is JEA. As I'm sure everybody is aware, we are currently on a well and septic system. Well and septic systems are not designed for anything outside of a residence. So that would be something that has to change no matter what. So when they sent in the bid set, and the information we got back from the contractor was Nassau County is a problem with getting contractors to bid. Not everybody wants to go to Nassau County. Number 2 is the size of our project. To us, it's a large project. To some of these contractors that are doing this stuff daily, this is not a very big project for these guys to bid on. So the building itself, and this is what's included in the building itself, the general conditions, which would be an on-site office, fencing, dumpsters, porta potties, management of the site, that would be the general conditions. Concrete and masonry, the building shell and siding, which is a metal building, is what we're going with. So that includes the building shell and the siding that goes along with it. Electrical, plumbing, mechanical, HVAC, fire suppression, kitchen equipment, doors and windows, finishes, insurance, and then the contractor's fee. Now, what we had estimated that our price was going to be for the project itself would be somewhere around $2.1 million, and that's what we've been working towards. The building itself came out at about $2.2 million. So not too bad, but that's only the building. So if we look at the site work in addition to that, and what has to happen with the site work is we have a whole new parking area. We have to dig 12 feet into the existing pond, so the pond has to be enlarged, and then more drainage has to be installed. And the main issue with that is, if you think about all of the grass and impervious ground that we have out there, when it rains, it just soaks into the ground. If you cover that with a building, and then you cover it with asphalt that's going to go almost all the way over to whatever the road, is that Maranatha? Almost to Maranatha. We'll be within 75 feet of Maranatha. So pretty much everything's going to get paved, which means that water has to go somewhere. So they have to enlarge the pond in order to get the water to go into the pond. Overflow from the pond has to go back out to Black Rock Road, so there's more digging that's involved there. Additional drainage includes new piping, new drain junction boxes, added parking lot and curbing that will extend almost all the way to Maranatha, all new sidewalks, a lift station. A lift station is a pump house that's designed to take the sewage and pump it back towards JEA, and because of the distance away we are, we have to have the lift station. We have to raise the grade. Right now, all the ground is low. It has to come up. Piping below Black Rock Road to tie into the water and sewer is something that we have to cover. And then the existing parking lot right over here has to be redone. Now, the reason this has to be redone is because this parking lot, I believe, is probably 20, 25 years old. Now, a lot of the structure underneath of it, the drainage, is running towards end of life. Plus, it's not sufficient once we add everything else. It's not sufficient for what's there. If you go in the parking lot, you'll see, I think, 3 drains right outside of the church. There's nothing on the other end of the parking lot. So we have to add new drainage underneath that parking lot, so there's a cost in redoing that. Plus, with the new city, I don't know if it's an ordinance or a requirement, curbing is required, so there's differences required in the parking lot. Then we also need to modify the entrance of the parking lot. If you ever come in this way right here, you turn in, take a sharp right, take a sharp left to get around the church. We're going to slide that over so that you come straight into the parking lot and eliminate that. In addition, we have landscaping that's required. There's city ordinances with the number of trees you have to have per acre. There's a lot of trees that are required out here. And then the irrigation. We only received 1 quote on the site work. This is an extremely small site, oddly enough. But if you pass that subdivision, the new I think it's Black Rock Cove that's going up down there on the right, You see how large that place is. If you ever go down through Wildlight and you see the size of those sites out there, those are large sites. So when you look at it, we have a very small site. And unfortunately, the single quote that we got came in at $1.5 million. So already we're almost twice where we wanted to be on the cost of the structure, including the site work. The final piece would be the JEA. So JEA water stops down at the new subdivision down there, and it stops down here at Heron Isles. So, and sewer is even a little bit further away. Now, talking to JEA, there's a possibility, a good possibility, that they will do what's called a cost share on the water, which means that we have to pay for the water lines to run down here, but then we get reimbursed for it, and the reimbursement happens within a couple of months from what I was told. On the sewer, they don't know if they will do any cost share or not on that. So it's hard to even estimate what the cost of that is. We've kind of guessed at it somewhere between $200,000 to $300,000, but again, that's just a really good guess is all of that is. Even JEA didn't give us a real number on that. So we are trying to reach out to other contractors that we think would be able to bid on that and give us some different numbers. I talked to the civil engineer on Friday. He came out and we met, and I told him, I said, hey, we thought this was going to be about $500,000 or $600,000 worth of work, not $1.5 million. And he said, yeah, that's a lot of money. And I'm not really surprised at it. He said, I don't know if it's right, but I don't think it's wrong. So we can engage with other contractors, but I don't know what the prices will come back at. As far as each of the individual subcontractors, we went through that with the contractor, and he gave us the price for each subcontractor, told us how many bids he had on each. Some of them he had 4 or 5, some of them he had 1 or 2, and told us the ranges of where the bids were. So we have the opportunity to go back and work with him. We have the opportunity to look for other contractors ourselves that we can give them information on that might be able to help out. But I do just want to mention a few things in closing. The area of the parking lot, which will be this parking lot plus this parking lot, is dictated by the sanctuary only. That does not include the new building. So if we were to actually build this sanctuary today, we would have to have all of this infrastructure that is part of the site work, because that's what's changed in the codes and changed in some of the things over the past 20 years. The sanctuary is what controls it. So when the engineers look at it, they say, if you fill the sanctuary, we don't think you're going to have people in another building at the same time that's going to work that. So this is all based on the sanctuary. Extending the pond is a result of all the drainage that's required. The good news on the site work is when we move into the next phases, there'll be very little site work. This pretty much covers everything. Anything done additionally after this would just be to accommodate the new building just in that one location. The existing fellowship hall is 28 feet wide and 60 feet long. The new fellowship hall building that we have, just the fellowship section, is 54 feet by 88 feet, which is almost 3 times as big. I think it's 2.8 is what it works out to be. Plus we have storage, plus we have a larger kitchen, plus we have the bathrooms. All of this is stuff that we need. And I tell you this because the first thought when you look at something like this is, gosh, if it's that much money, how about we just scale it back a little bit? Scaling it back, if you take a building and you cut it in half, that does not take the cost and cut the cost in half. You still have a lot of the same cost. What we don't want to do is go into a building that's not going to work at the time that we go into the building. We want to make sure we have something that is suitable for the next 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, long after all of us are gone. There may be some value optimization in this building. There may be some things that we could change, some height, some various finishes, but overall, we're pretty confident this is where we need to be with this building, and there's not much we can take out of this building. We've worked on this along the way. There were things we looked at in the building when we originally set it up that we did not want to go larger than what we thought we needed, but we didn't want to go smaller either. So what we came up with is what we believe is really needed for this church. Regardless of how we move forward, there's one thing I'm fairly certain of. Anybody that's ever done anything in construction has never finished a job and said, man, I can't believe that came out a lot cheaper than what we expected. So just to keep that in mind, nobody expects any prices to go down. So if you look at it right now, if you were to say, man, where are we going to be in another year or 2 years? Nobody really knows. But at some point, if you lock in the contract, then you're locked in at that price, and that's where you move forward regardless of what happens in the future. So that is everything that I have. Does anybody have any questions for me on the construction side of it or the plans or any of that? Man, I'm either really good at this or really bad. So I will tell you this, though. We did all of the drawings. Oh, we have one in the back. All of the drawings are all almost complete. The only thing we're waiting on right now is the final mechanical drawings, which means that we will, in the next week or two, receive all of the signed and sealed drawings that are suitable to submit to the county for permitting. So we are at a spot where we've actually the contractor started filling out the paperwork for permitting, and we said, hey, let's not submit for a permit. Let's get everything ready, but let's just hold off on submitting to the county. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if in the future, I don't even need it. If in the future, let's say metal went down, would it show in the price? I mean, not the total price, but would you not get a benefit or a cut if it went down?
If it goes down before you sign the contract, then you can negotiate that price. If it goes down after the contract is signed, then most likely no. Whatever you signed at the time of the contract is what you're paying.
So they get all that freebie stuff.
Right, but it also goes the other way. So if the cost of metal goes up, which is the norm, I don't believe metal goes down very often. So if the cost goes up, we're locked in at that price, and that's what we pay. Yes.
Brother Dan, just to kind of understand a little bit, the way all this will happen, when it does happen or when it happens, the site work and the building, I mean, all of that's going to come together at the same time? I mean, are we going to start something at one time, and is this project all going to be taken on at the same time, like the new parking lot,
All at the same
everything?
time. Now, the sequence of how that happens, I do not know, but it's not like we do all the site work and then we come back and we pour the foundation on the building. All of that will be working together in conjunction. The only thing that has to happen is we have to have the JEA lines in front of the building before we can finish the building.
In the demolition process, I mean, that they get going on it, that's when that's the start of it,
Yes.
I guess. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
I would expect some of the site work will start a little bit prior to the demolition, but not much. For the most part, it'll all run together. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering if they're going to pave more than what's already paved, because I love the grassy side. So is that part of the site work expense, is paving the other side too?
Yes, ma'am. That's yes, because the building will run it's probably 150 feet away from Maranatha is how far the building runs out, which is, if you're familiar over there, there's the little culvert that runs down. It'll go just past that little culvert, but the pavement will go actually another 75 feet past that. So there'll be limited grass left over there, but there will be some. You can't keep grass. Now, you could go to the city for a variance to possibly get gravel or millings or something other than asphalt. Two issues with that. Number one, now you have a whole different maintenance problem, right? If anybody that lives on a gravel road or sees gravel roads or millings knows that eventually that washes out. That's got to be graded. It's got to be maintained, would be number one. Number two, and I don't have a number, but in the overall scheme of it, it's not a large amount to keep from paving that. So paving would probably make the most sense, because even if you decide to come back and pave it, even if we're trying to look at a way to find value in some of the stuff that we're doing, and we say, hey, we don't want to pave it right now, we'll come back and do that in a couple of years. in a couple of years, there's additional prep work that's required for it that would probably cost just as much as if we were to actually go ahead and pave it right now. Yes, sir. You probably could, and I don't know what the cost is. I thought about that earlier today and didn't think to ask. I would expect, though, if the civil engineer did not recommend it, it's probably not a very cost-effective solution. I do know it's expensive. I just don't know how expensive. Everybody should turn their phones off before service starts.
It's a call-in question.
It would be staged in separate times because we can't tear up one parking lot and not have another parking lot ready. So it would be a case where we would probably do the work on this parking lot, get this one ready, and then start doing the work on that one, or maybe vice versa. Anything else? Yes. Right, without the JEA cost, which is. Correct, and it's probably going to be another 3 months. JEA won't give a price on anything until all the paperwork's submitted. In order to submit for JEA to do anything, you have to also actually have the routing site done, which means you have to have an engineer go out and figure out how they're going to run the pipes all the way down here. It's the responsibility of the customer for JEA to do all of the prep work, and then once you turn it into JEA, they'll approve it. Then they put it out for bid, and then it comes back with the pricing. Yes, 300 sitting, and I believe they said 700 standing is what's on the plans. I don't know if you could actually get 700 people in there, or at least comfortably. But you know, for a sit-down function with tables and chairs, the capacity of the building would be 300. And then also some other things to look at on the building. If you look at the pictures out in the hallway, you know, it's a 20-foot tall building, right? It seats 300 people. It's not the size of a full court basketball court, but it gets very close. And the intent that we went with on the building, and also just to throw one other thing out, so I've been involved with the architect and the engineers since we started the building. So we sent the building originally. The architect drew it. We had everything we thought the way we wanted it. We sent it to the building manufacturer, and he said, "Man, I don't understand. This thing's a little bit taller than what I usually see, and it's going to be more expensive." I said, "Well, what do you normally see?" And he told me, and we said, okay. Well, we went back and looked at it. We said, okay, well, actually, that works for our needs. If that's going to save us some money, then that's certainly what we want to do. Very similar with the mechanical engineer. We had a conversation with a mechanical engineer about 3 weeks ago, and he says, if I do it this way, he says, I'll do it if that's what you really want, but this is probably not the most efficient way to do it. And that's what we said, well, what's the most efficient way to do it? And he said, if we do it this way, it'll save you about $50,000. Well, then let's do it that way. That's the way that we want to go. So the whole way through this, we have been looking at value engineering, value optimization ways to save on this building. But there's certain things that we want, like we don't want just a 10-foot ceiling with a large building. We want something that the kids can go in, that you can have youth in there. They can play basketball, volleyball, some kind of sports. We don't plan on hosting basketball tournaments. And that was one of the things we looked at before. There's First Baptist Church that hosts tournaments. New Life down the street has a full-size court. We don't necessarily need all of that room. We need a room that's large enough for a meeting area for 300 people, and then large enough that we can support activities for the youth and anybody else that may be interested in there. So that's where we came up with some of that information.
Hello. Sonny.
Yes.
Does anybody know what the monthly payment would be? I mean,
Scott's going to cover that one here in a few minutes. That's a different kind of math for me. Does anybody have any other questions? Now, again, so if you don't have any questions, you think of one later, feel free to ask. During this program, after the program, I'm available if anybody wants my cell number, my email address. I'm perfectly fine with giving all that information out. Not right now on live stream, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And if I don't have the answer, I can certainly find somebody that does have the answer. All right. Well, thank you very much.
I'll try to speak through here to where everybody can hear me. Okay, if that's okay. Everybody can hear me okay? Okay, good. How many here that's in the meeting tonight was at our banquet on October 29th? Good, just about everybody, okay? Can you believe it's already been 7 months since we had that banquet? And then if you remember, we had 2 weeks after that, I think, was what we called Commitment Sunday, where we had the commitment cards, which was early November. And wow, we're already 7 months down the road. It's like the time keeps going by. We're, halfway through the year already. Okay, so I was thinking about that today, and it's like, man, this project takes a lot of work, but we've come a long way from almost 2 years ago when we originally started on the project. So it's exciting to be at this point. When we got what Dan just went over and covered on the cost last week, that was a little bit of a surprise, although we weren't totally surprised because if you look at what's going on in our country today with the cost of things, it's pretty high, pretty expensive in virtually every area, okay? But what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit. I want to start off first and kind of give you an update of our current financial position. I think that's important for you to understand how we manage that. Share some top-line numbers with you. I don't want to get too detailed. That's what's on these slides I gave you copies of so you could take it home with you when I talk to it, if you want to make any notes on it, et cetera. I think that would help you understand where we are. Because if you're like everybody else, you say, can we afford this? That's a good question. And I'd like to be able to walk you through that to say, how are we going to afford this? How can we pay for this? How can we do this? Versus saying, well, okay, well, you know what, that's way out of our league. Let's just call it a day and go on home. I don't think that's what we want to do. I don't think that's what you want to do. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the finances, where we are. Then I want to talk also about the commitments and where we are in that process, okay? And then I'll finish up maybe with some ideas. Okay, while we're in this phase, which is really phase one, if you remember our project's 3 phases. This fellowship hall is phase one. And to Dan's point, the site work cost, boy, it's the big cost, which after phase one, the site work piece is pretty much done, okay? So that's the good news. But we knew this phase one was going to be a big chunk on a lot of these unknowns, okay? But I'll walk through that and try to give you an idea, how can we do this? Not if we can do it, but I want you to think, how can we do this, okay? Because I think that's the way we need to think. And I will tell you this, I'll share a couple of things with you in just a minute. It can be done. I honestly believe that. It can be done. And we'll talk about that, okay? So let's start off first. Let's just look at where we are the year to date on the tithes and offerings, okay? If you look on your sheet, here we are, and this is through May. Our tithes, this is 2024, $253,000 is what the tithing has been so far to our church. The good news is we're up 6.5%, and that's $15,470 that we're up versus last year for the same time frame. Okay, again, that's through May, okay? That's the good news. Now, let's be realistic here, and let's be honest. Let me give you the bad news. Out of the first 5 months, 2 of the months, we didn't bring in enough tithing to cover the monthly expenses. But we're up $15,000 year to date. Okay, so my point to that is this. In our budget, and as we look at our budget throughout the course of the year, you annualize certain items in the budget, and then there's some items that you pay one lump sum, whatever that may be. So that's why that's going to vary a little bit. It's not a concern, that's just the way the budgeting process works. Okay, we could go in and say, okay, let's annualize everything and look at it by month, but it's not a true reflection of the monies that we're spending each month. So I want you to think this is really a good sign so far, year to date, that we're up $15,000 in just 5 months, okay? That doesn't include obviously June where we're at. This is through May. Now let's go in and look at last year in 2023 and 2024 for the total year. 2023, for the year, we generated $591,000 of tithes, okay? This year, we have projected it to be somewhere between $630,000 to $650,000. And all I did was took the 591, annualized it up, gave it about a 6.5%. If we stay on that trend, that's what the number would be, somewhere in that range. But usually things happen towards the end of the year where you usually get a pretty good bump on some things. People want to get things in for tax purposes, or you might get, if you're retired, you might get a retired minimum distribution that you might get. I mean, there's various reasons. So anyway, we're projecting it to be 630 to 650. Okay, we think that'll be a good year. The good thing too about this year's budget is when we get to that number, we're going to cover ourselves and we're going to come out of the year, we should be positive for the total year, where our monthly tithes will exceed our expenses for the total year. Okay, that's where we should be. But we update that every business meeting. If you have a chance to come to each quarterly business meeting, we give you an update. We look at our trends, and we look at all that to kind of get an idea of where we are and where we're going, okay? Now, let's go on and look a little bit further. Let's talk about money in the bank, okay, for the next slide. The checking account balance. Okay, that's $370,000 of checking account of cash we have in the checking account today, all right? If you look at our designated offerings, and everybody understands what the designated offerings is, that's an offering that somebody has designated to go to a specific ministry, whether it be youth or women who care, the men's ministry, a lot of different ministries throughout the church where we do receive designated offerings. So some of the Sunday school classes, they'll take up collections in their class, and they have a positive balance that's in there. That's cash, but it goes designated to that ministry, period. It can't go anywhere else. That's $248,000, okay? So our net checking account, you just take the top one and the middle one and subtract it. A net working capital that we have is $122,000. That's what we have in there today to pay the bills, okay? That's through the end of May. And I just wanted to give you an update of how much was in the bank. We try to keep this above $100,000 because you have to have a reserve in case something catastrophic might happen. And when I say catastrophic, I'm talking about a significant expense, okay? So we try to keep that between $100,000 and $130,000, somewhere in that range on hand to pay the bills. And we've been doing a good job of that, the church has. Now let's look a little bit further into the next slide on the investment account. If you remember, a couple years ago, we had pretty good amount of cash that was laying around that wasn't working for us. We had a CD at one of the local banks that was paying not much at all. So we said, well, let's take this cash until we're going to need it to pay for the work we're going to do, and let's get it invested and start earning some money on it and let it grow until we need it, okay? And that's when we sit down with the the North Florida Baptist financial arm, who will be our lender, and I'll talk on that a little bit later. We sat down with them. They had investment options, et cetera, and we looked at them, and we took advantage of it. And we've actually put 2 lump sum monies into that investment account. The first one we did, we deposited as paying about 3.5% interest. The second one we did is paying about 2.5%. Now, if we were to do that today and start all over and invest that money today, we'd be up to close to 5%. That's how quick, how much the rates have moved. But it's kind of like a money market. We can't take it out without a penalty, but when we go to build, we can take it out without a penalty because that money will be applied towards the building. So that's why we wanted to put it with them versus putting it with the bank that might pay a higher rate, okay? So at least we're earning some money. And from the time we opened those accounts to where we are today, it's generated about $15,000 of profit, okay? So it's working for us until we need it. So that's what that is. Our designated building fund balance, if you look at it today, we have $200,000 that's sitting in there today that's designated specifically for the building. That's commitment monies that have come in, building fund monies that have come in. That's what's sitting there today, $200,000. So if you add those two together, we're already at $570,000 of money that we could put as a down payment on the building today if need be. That's where we are. And of course, monies keep coming in every week. Since we had the banquet, we asked for the 3-year commitment, and building fund monies are continuing to come in. The other good thing is we don't have any debt, as you know. So we don't have a current mortgage or an existing mortgage. All we have are monthly expenses and operational expenses, which is another good thing for the church. So from a financial position, we're not in a bad financial position at all for the size church that we have. Now, you can look at some other churches around. You can look at Fernandina First Baptist. It's a big church. They've just completed a big building program, and they were able to do that debt-free. It cost them a lot of money. They went into it thinking it was going to cost one thing, and it ended up costing almost twice of what they thought it was going to be. There's other churches in the area that are looking at expansions and looking at building programs. And talking with our representative at the Financial Association that we deal with, Kurt, he is saying there's a lot of churches that are out there in the same boat that we're in. They need room. They're growing. They've got some cash, but they're going to need more. And as they go out and do the same process that we're doing, they're finding out as well it's not cheap. Okay? It is not cheap. All right, so that's just the position that we happen to be in. If you go to the next slide and look, these are monies that we've paid currently year to date from the time we've started to where we are today. This goes back all the way before 2023, where we had to pay architectural fees, we had to pay some permitting, had to pay the civil engineer. We were able to pay $167,000 worth of cost already that we didn't have to go borrow money to pay. We paid it out of our existing building fund monies that were designated for the building fund only, and that's what we paid for. So we already had the account growing to pay for some of these expenses that had come in. So that's a good thing. We haven't had to borrow anything at all, period. Okay? So from a financial standpoint, I just wanted to kind of top line and run you through that of where we are from a church financial position. For our size church, again, I think we're doing a very good job. We've got to do more. You will agree, and we have to do more. We have to find ways to do more. But I do think God's going to take care of that for us. I really do. Because I think God knows what our needs are. It's going to be God's timing and not our timing. And I think we have enough horsepower in here. We have enough people committed, enough people to know that we need this. We're going to find a way to get there. I honestly think we will. Okay? So before I go into talking a little bit about the commitment piece, any questions on anything of the top line numbers that I just shared with you? If anybody's got any questions on any of that? Okay. Oh, we got one back here.
Hey, thank you. The 6.5% growth rate, I think that's phenomenal. But is that trending in statistical history of what we're seeing, or are we just using this year to kind of baseline what's going forward, or have we seen that sort of growth kind of year over year to maintain stability?
It's a good question, and the answer to your question is yes, except for 1 year. If you go back and look at last year, we're trending ahead of last year. If you look at 2022, we were behind 2021. If you look at 2021, it was a good year. 2021 exceeded 2020. So we only had that 1 year, 2021, that was a down year. But if you look at it, and at the business meeting, we'll hand out the trend chart and annualize it and show you the year-over-year growth. We've got a good positive trend going, and I do believe that will continue because we're getting new members as well, and that's helping. So the trend is good. But we'll share that trend chart, and we can even get it to you a copy ahead of time if you want to. But we do publish it at every quarterly business meeting to give you that updated monthly trend and annualized trend. Okay? Good question. Got one over here.
Have you guys figured out how much, I've talked pretty loud, how much you're going to need in tithes every month once it is built, just in phase one, so that can we swing the new tithe?
I'm going to get that to you in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Because to answer this, the question that you had earlier, I'm going to tell you what that payment's going to be, okay, in just a few minutes. Good question. Was there another hand? Oh, yeah.
Especially
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And we did, Trevor, because I just didn't have Gail publish it because it's a lot of stuff. But to your point, I will tell you one thing about our church. We were surprised because our trends were not bad because if you remember, we had church in the parking lot a lot of times on the stage. So our church stayed open in many ways, which was really good. People were still faithful because we had the opportunity for online giving. So we had a lot of things in place that helped, but it did kind of take a little dip, but it didn't go as far as we thought it would. And then when we opened back up, it came back quickly. It really did. So yes, we did take a look at that. Oh, yeah, exactly. Again, but we were pleasantly surprised that we thought, oh, my goodness, because when it happened, we thought, oh, boy, what's that going to do to us? And we were able to manage our way right through it, so that was a good thing. Okay? All right, any other questions on the financing piece? Okay, let me kind of hit a little bit of what Dan talked about. And the numbers that he gave you, if you looked at the 2.1 million, the 2.2 number that he gave you, looked at the $1.5 million site work, that comes up to about 3.7 million of those two costs alone. And so that's everything without JEA. And if you were to throw JEA number in there, and Dan, I think, recommended he probably threw anywhere between $300,000 to $400,000, we're really going to be around $4 million if you really look at it as it is today. Okay? So if you take our $570,000 that we have in the bank today, designated for the building fund, and that's going to hopefully continue to grow. So I like to round up. Let's call it $600,000, okay? Yeah, we've got $600,000 to work with. The questions about, okay, how much can we borrow is the first question. Based on our current financial position and our current cash flow, we can only get $1.8 million. And I say only, that's what they're willing to loan us as things stand today. We've submitted all of our financials annually, quarterly. We've given them everything that they've needed. They've run a cash flow analysis. They've run all kinds of ratio analysis, just like you were getting a mortgage for a home. They ran the same analysis, and meeting with Kurt several times, we walked through and we talked about, okay, how did you come up with these numbers? And it was all right there, based on our current financial position. $1.8 million. The payment on $1.8 million is $12,100 a month, okay? If you look at our current offering in the bulletin every week, we're averaging bringing in around 10, 11,000. Some weeks are higher than others. So in essence, I want you to think about it. On just the $1.8 million, that's $12,000 a month. That's one more week that we're going to have to come up with to pay for that, to give you an idea. We couldn't even borrow any more than $1.8 million as things stand today. We wouldn't want to. Trust me, we wouldn't want to. We don't want to get what we call building poor. You don't want to put all your eggs towards the building, and then we can't have ministries, we can't have youth, we can't have other things we need. I don't think we don't want that. You don't want that. Okay, so what can we feasibly do? What can we afford today? And that's what we can afford today. So if you took the $1.8 million, took the $570,000, that comes up to about 2.4. Okay, that we're saying, okay, if the cost was 2.4 out there today, we're probably in a pretty good position. Let's go. Let's do this. We would have to get approved for 1.8, and Kurt feels very confident that we would get approved for that. And we just have to find a way to come up with the extra money to pay for it every month. And when we go down this path, there's going to be two pieces to the mortgage. When the construction starts, we're going to have a construction loan. So that means, okay, as the contractors come in, as the general contractor does work, they will send us a bill when that work is completed. We'll get the bill, and we'll pay for it out of that construction loan as we go throughout the process. Then when we get to the very end, we're going to do a permanent loan. which will roll all that up, and then boom, we'll sit down and get the permanent loan with Kurt and the team. And then that's where our $12,000 payment starts, if the balance still is 1.8 that we're borrowing. That's the way that will work. As you know, the construction process, I think, Dan, the length of time projected it takes to get that work done, 7 to 8 months from when we start. All right, during that 7 to 8 months, whenever that starts, we've got time between now and then the end of that 7 months to continue to generate building fund monies to help pay, to where hopefully our permanent loan will be lower. We won't have to borrow the 1.8. But see, we're going to have other costs that we don't know yet. And we got to have water and sewer. It's not an option. We cannot put another well in. We cannot dig a bigger overflow field. That's just not a solution for us. That's throwing good money after bad. The church is going to need water and sewer one day. Let's find a way to get there. And it's just going to be expensive while we're doing that. So we don't have that option. As Dan said, we're going to do everything we can. This building team is actively working. We're all working. We're trying to say, how can we save money? Where can we save? How do we go about it? Getting the contracts with the general contractor and the subcontractors, let's sit down and walk us through the scope of the work so we can feel good about that cost if we're going to be paying that. So I hope you have confidence in the team that that's what we're doing on everything. We're not just going to agree to everything. We're going to look at everything and we're going to question everything. Yes, Robin? Well, yeah, that's one way to look at it. I mean, if that's the total project cost, but I would say that's a good way to look at it because we're going to have to complete the whole thing within that 7-month window. So is that 1.6 to be raised first before you make a commitment? Well, first of all, let's see what our bottom line cost is going to be. Let's get comfortable with that number. And then let's say if we're comfortable with whatever that number is, then we're going to go to work on whatever that number is that we need to raise before we can get going with the work. It's not like, let's put the building up, let's put everything up, and then we have to stop because we're out of money. We can't do that. We got to say whatever the total cost is going to be, let's settle on that, and then we're ready to go whenever we get to that point. No. Yeah, the reason being, if we were to close today, it's 7.25%. When we started talking with Kurt way back, it was right under 4. So thank goodness for, well, I don't want to go there. But based on the interest rate and based on the economy, you can see what's happened, and we don't expect it to go down much. I don't think the Fed's going to reduce it at all this year, maybe a little bit. It's not going to affect it that much. So we're going to be working on a rate of that. And the way the rate's going to work, once we sit down and we'll have options of what's going to be best for us, if we want to do a variable type rate or we want to do a fixed type rate, Robin. If you do a variable type rate, it's like any variable loan. You can only go up a certain amount, et cetera. I don't know. That's down the road. But once we get ready, before we close, we're going to weigh all those options to see what's going to be best for the church.
And are you guys still going to a contract before the elections?
That's
I think a lot of weight on finances is coming.
Well, to be honest with you, first of all, it's going to take we're a little ways away from getting final cost. I don't know when that's going to be, but we got a lot of work to still do. Okay, we can't rush into this. Okay, so we know that we got a lot of work to do. I don't know when those answers, Robin, will come, and then we're just going to have to kind of weigh it and see. I just don't know. I wish I could answer that question. I don't know. Don't know what that answer is going to be. But as one thing we will do, we want to keep everybody informed as we go down the path while we're having the meeting tonight. and I appreciate Pastor John allowing us to take the time to have this type of meeting. It's important. It's important you understand where we are and what we have to do to get done. It's really important. And we need to take the time to make sure you understand, that we answer your questions, that we communicate everything we can to you as we know it. And then we'll keep you informed going down that path. But we still have a lot of work to do. We really do. So we'll keep you informed as we navigate down that path. Okay? Let's talk real quick. I want to give you a kind of a breakdown of the commitments. I mentioned that we had the banquet back October 29th, and then we had Commitment Sunday. We had a really good turnout at the banquet. I think it was a great evening for our church. I think everybody was excited. Everybody sees the need. It was a wonderful evening, not only of fellowship, but of worship. And lifting up to God what we need, and asking God to bless us. And that, to me, that was really just a great evening. So we got the commitment cards out, and throughout that process, we have received 80 commitment cards, okay, from that evening. That could be family. I don't know if it's families, individuals. It's 80 cards, 80 commitments that we have received, all right? Some of you might have thought, well, I thought we would have received more than that. I thought we would have had two. So while we're sharing this with you tonight, we're going to have to address this. Because if you look at where we are right now, on the commitment total, in the bulletin it says $793,000 every week, and we've received to date $334,000. We've paid $167,000 out of the $334 that we received. We have $200 designated that's still sitting in our checking account. We have $39,000 that we have received from people who are non-commitment card holders. In other words, offerings that have come in for the building fund for individuals, and that was 17 of them, or families or whatever. So it's really 80 plus 17 would be 97. I know some people might not have wanted to get a commitment card because they couldn't commit. That's okay. That's between you and God, okay? But 80 commitment cards is where we've got today. We have, year to date so far, we received, our total received so far is the $334,000. And if you look at that, bump it up against the 793, that's 42% of the commitment that we have received in 7 months. Not bad. Problem is, we just need more commitments. That's our opportunity. That's, bottom line, is our opportunity, okay? Yeah, Jeff? If you look at the church directory today, 218 are on the church directory because it's just recently been purged. There was a lot of names that were on there that needed to come off because of various reasons, et cetera, but 218, okay, is what's on the directory today, Jeff. Good question, okay? So that's where we are on that standpoint. Now, let's talk about that for just a minute. There's various reasons why people make commitments, or the commitments that we're going to need to do this project. I know when we were going down this, I think a lot of you know Ken Westbrook. He was our consultant that we worked with when we were putting the campaign together. And Ken shared one thing with us, and I have never forgot it, and I've shared it several times, and Ken always says, it's not about equal giving, it's about equal sacrifice. And he was so right. And commitments are between you and God. All right? All I'm saying is, all I'm pointing out is that 793 number, it's a good ways from 4 million. That's what I want you to understand. That's kind of where we need to be. It could even be higher, it could be lower. But right now, what we do know, it's right at $4 million. Yes, sir. You want to answer that? We have talked about it. Yeah. We're not ready to pull the trigger. Right. Just yet. Yeah. That has been a discussion, and I think once we continue to grow, then we're going to probably get to that point, and we'll have to. Now, that's good. But yes, we have talked about that, but we're just not quite there yet. All right? But that 793 is what I want you to plan in your head, if you will. All right? And I want you to seriously pray of what we need to get this project done. It will not be easy. It will be a sacrifice, but there is things that we can do to get there. Let me walk a couple of things real quick of ideas just to think about that can help us get there. And we ought to start immediately and go down this path until we get to the point where before we have moved any dirt or demoed the building, okay? First thing you could do, you could accelerate your commitment. Remember, we asked for a 3-year commitment. Maybe you can speed that up. And it would be nice, the quicker we can get the monies in, then we'll know how much monies we have so we can apply it against the construction loan before we do the permanent loan. All right, so you can accelerate your commitment. You can extend your commitment or enter a new one. You can take your existing commitment out and say, I want to recommit and give you a new one. You could do that and change the number. All right, if that's in your budget and if you can afford to do that. All right? We have people that are just uncomfortable committing because they say, well, you know what, I'm on a very tight budget, I'm very limited, I don't have that much excess funds, I do my tithing now, and I'll give what I can, but I just have trouble committing. That's okay. Again, that's between you and God and them and God. And if that 17 number keeps growing, that's great, that's fine, but the more info we can get ahead of time to where we know what we've got coming in, then it's going to help us better understand how quickly we can go down the path to get the building done, if that makes sense. The other thing is, I want to give you an example. This designated account that I just mentioned, our church is really good with that. And when we sit down and do an annualized budget and take each one of our line items throughout our budget, it's very gratifying to see that we get designated offerings for certain things. The women who care, the men's ministry, the youth, every one of our ministries. There's monies that people want to designate towards that ministry, and that money goes towards that ministry. Then we do an annualized budget, and we put a budget together, and it helps to offset that budget. Let me give you an example. Everybody know about the Summer Bash? Right? Big deal. We have a great time. We bring the community in. We open our church up. It's wonderful. Chalk the lot, it's the same way. The pumpkin patch, the same way. Do you know we had a designated offering that's going to cover every bit of that cost this year? It doesn't cost the church nothing. Amen. That's faith. That's what this church is very good at doing. So we're going to do our summer bash. We budgeted $4,000. Well, we're going to save $4,000 technically because we've got a designated offering of $4,000. Plus, actually, to make the news even better, Pastor John got $500 more from the association and said, hey, we want to support you. So we got $4,500 just in that. I mean, praise God. And if you look at every one of those, so we can take every one of those designated ministries, and when we sit down to do the budget this year, then we're going to really get firm on our budget and to say, why put a number out there that we know we're not going to need? Okay, so let's get the budget down. We'll turn it into Kurt. Maybe our borrowing power will increase because our expenses will go down. That's just an idea. That's what we're going to try to do. And that budgeting piece comes in November. Okay, that's one way to do it. Another thing that you can do, and this is personal, you can do, if you don't have a tax professional, you could get one because I tell you what, there's a lot of things that can be done. If you've got monies that you want to do something with, hopefully you want to do something with the church, but I will tell you this, and it's great, but there's other tax advantages that you can learn. If you have that, there's charitable trust you can open up and create, and it really, you can put monies into a charitable trust that's under your name, for an example, and based on your income and your tax bracket, And based on how much you put in there, there's a formula to say, okay, if you do that and you put in X amount of dollars, then your adjusted gross income is going to be lowered, which is going to lower your personal tax. That's just one of the ideas. All I'm saying is there's many ways that monies can be raised. We're even looking at grants. We're trying to research and get grants from organizations that want to grant monies to growing churches. We're going, and JD has sent us some information of some grants that we can go after, and we're going to be pursuing them. So we're not sitting still. We're not sitting still. We know we can do this. It will not be easy, but that's okay. If it was easy, we'd already had it done. But that's okay. I do think, and I know you do too, if we pray and we're faithful, God's going to be faithful back to us like He has already been. I honestly believe that. So keep that in mind. But my point in this that I just explained, and I don't want to get into details because that's a different discussion. All I'm saying is there's other ways from a personal standpoint that might fit you. And we can help get you in touch with the experts, the professionals that can help answer those questions and guide you through that process. It could be assets that you may have. It could be stocks and bonds you may have. There's all kinds of different things. That's just another avenue to have. But we're going to tap everything we can. And I'll tell you this. If you've got ideas, come to us. We're all in this together. There's a lot of smart people in this room. And we're open to anything. We're in this together. We're in this for the glory of God, and we want to do this for God. So please talk to us. If you've got ideas, let's talk. We don't know all the answers, but we're sure going to work hard to try to find all the answers and the avenues that we can. So I want to make that commitment to you, all right? I don't want to go any further. I tried just to give you a top line of where we are, but that commitment piece is what I wanted to end on because that's what's very important. And I just want you to see, remember that 793. And I want you to think, well, what do we got to get to? Wouldn't it be nice if we really worked hard and we did everything we could and we get to $4 million? Because I'd like to be able to come in here one day and say, guess what? We don't have a mortgage. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, and that's what's going to be awesome. And I do think we can get there one day, okay? So as hard as this may be, as difficult as this may be, that's okay. We're going to work hard, but that's what we wanted to do is make sure we shared everything with you. All right? Now, before, that was really all I had. Is there any other questions for me? And then I'd like to ask our building team representatives if they've got any comments real quick as well. But if there are any other questions? Yes, ma'am. That's a good point, Nanette. We could do that. I know in the new members classes, I know Pastor John gives all the new member the brochure, the pamphlet that's got the commitment card in there. He's doing that. We haven't, since it's just been 7 months, we thought, should we do that again? I don't know. That's a good idea. We might want to do that again. That's why we wanted to share this number with everybody tonight. And if that's what we need to do, or if you just want to address your own personal commitment, or if you don't have a commitment and you want to do one, you can still do it. They're out here in the foyer. And you can go ahead and do it and put it in the white envelope. It only goes to Gail. Yes, ma'am. Sure. That money is that class, that Sunday school class or whatever that ministry is, that's that money that class has designated it for. And if that's what they choose to do, sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's been done several times, Earl says. Okay? Yes. Well, the nice thing about having the general fund, that's really what we do every week, because that's why we do the budget. So the general fund tithing that comes in covers the budget needs. The designated is only for those specific ministries for whatever reason they want to designate monies there. But the general fund is what that's for. So that fund covers all the budgeted line items. Now, the other thing that we'll probably do down the road, we're probably going to always have a building fund going on. I think we have to. I think most churches do, but the needs of our church, we're growing, and we're going to grow out of all this one day. So we probably will just get into the habit of having a building fund ongoing all the time, even after this is said and done. Okay? Yeah, Jeff?
Scott, are we expecting that this, even in this first phase, that it'll bring new members, which will help with more tithing?
We are, and here's why. If you look at the space that we're going to have, let's say once we start the construction, that's why we did the renderings out there. That's why we did the brochures. That's why on the website you can go in and see where we're going. And I think if people, particularly people moving in the community or people who are looking for a church, I do think they're going to say, wow, they got some stuff going on there. Oh, look, they're going to be expanding, et cetera. I do think we'll get a positive hit from that. Plus, right down the road, when that's all done and what's going on in the Yulee area, there are a lot of people moving in. I think subdivision right here, there's a lot of opportunities to bring new folks in. And I do think that will happen. Just don't know what that's going to be, but I do think that will happen. The good news is it's kind of happening already, and we hadn't even moved any dirt yet. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the outreach that we're doing at the church, it's already bringing in people. So we think that it's going to continue as well. All right. Gentlemen, any comments from any of you? Okay, Brother Ralph, I'll turn it over to you.
Has everybody got a headache? Depressed? Well, I'm here to give you some joy. Okay? Over 20-something years ago, Black Rock Baptist Church had the same problem that we have now. We had a small sanctuary over here. We were fastly running out of room. So we got a group together, put together a building committee, started talking about a building, went and looked at buildings. Started out, I think the first number we got was $750,000. The second number we got was almost $1 million. Well, it ended up costing us $1.4 million, right, Brother John? Well, we was never nowhere at that time near the financial solvency that we are today as a church. So when we went to the bank to borrow money, I hate to tell you, they laughed at us, but they kind of laughed at us. But we did have a guy that was up here, and he said, listen, if you can find co-signers to sign for this loan, we'll be more than happy to loan it to you. So 9 families of the church, and matter of fact, I will tell you this, I know for a fact there's still 3 of those families in the church, went up and signed a loan payment for $980,000 or something like that. A lot of money. Well, we had naysayers that said you couldn't do it. But church, keep in mind, we're in the same position now that we was in. We are out of room. How many was at the cake auction the other night? Okay, if you don't see the need for another building, a family life center, fellowship hall, whatever, we really need it. Now, can we do it? Absolutely. We did it then 20-something years ago. We can do it now. All we got to do is, number one, we got to pray, okay? Because I can assure you, we'll not do it on our own. We will not do it without God Almighty. He's got to be first. He does have to be first. We got to pray to Him, and we got to ask Him to show us what He wants us to do. Number 2, we got to all stick together, okay? We're a church. We're a family. Let's stick together. We can do it. We can build that building, and we can build it for the glory of God and for this community and this county. I've seen it happen It happened right here with this sanctuary. The sanctuary was paid off in record time. Even the banks couldn't believe it. So thank God that we don't have to put no more families in jeopardy, because at that time, if 8 of those families out of the 9 had defaulted on their commitment, that one would have been stuck with the whole bill. So we're not worried about that, but we can do it. And I say we, I mean everybody in this building, everybody that enters those doors back there, we can do this. But let's just keep praying, keep asking God to lead us, because we'll put that building for the glory of God, and He will get all the glory. Thank you.
That was awesome. That's what it's all about. It's about we got an awesome God. One thing is that, we know that we were at a room when we were in the fellowship hall with the cakewalks. But the underlying thing is that the whole fellowship hall's falling apart. It's totally illegal. If anybody's listening, Janice, don't worry about it. But everything there, it should be just knocked down right now, to be honest. Okay, and if we could do away with, splitting up and having 2 services, we would try that probably right now, to keep it going. But we really can't. We really only have one option. That's to take this step forward and to do this. And just try to break that down. Don't look at $4 million. Look at trying to just get $1.8 million. Try to get our loan. But pray to God. We got an awesome God, and like we said, He does miracles. He did it today. He can split the seas. He can do anything He wants. It's all got to be God's will. So just pray on it. Thank you.
Hey, y'all been patient tonight, so thank y'all very much. I just want to, let's close our time just thanking these guys, thanking all of you for being here tonight. And you've heard a lot, and you're still processing a lot. And so if you're wondering, where are we at? I hope you've heard the message from us, and that's we are ready to move forward. There is still a lot of work we want to do, we need to do. When I say we, it's not just these guys behind me, it is all of us, because we want this to be a church effort for the whole faith family, okay? So this is not just this group moving forward, it's the whole church moving forward, okay? There's still a lot to do. Like you've heard tonight, we don't have the final numbers. You even heard a scenario tonight of a church in our area that took on a multi-million-dollar project and they paid it in cash, okay? Would I like to be that church? Absolutely. In a perfect world, ideally, I wish we had the cash on hand to go ahead and pay for it. But also at the same time, sometimes, if you heard me this morning, sometimes God puts us into a situation where there's only one way to look, and that's up, okay? And so when you leave here tonight, understand this. We want to build this building. Our conviction is we need to build this building. But at the end of the day, it's only a building. It's only a building. Our hope is not going to be in this building, okay? We know that we need this space, but think of this, the reason of why are we doing this? And that is because this is not the same old Yulee that it was 30 years ago, and it's continuing to grow. So we could wait. We could wait 5 years, 10 years, see what's going to happen with the trends and with the material. They have been trending up. If we wait, today it's $4 million. 2 years from now, it could be $6 million, and they'll be thinking, man, we should have pulled the trigger back in 2024. Okay, so we want to be smart, we want to move forward, and we want to do it for the right reason, and that we want to be kingdom-minded at reaching more people. So that's why we want to do this, is for the glory of God. So I'm okay with the fact that we're in a situation where, Brother Ralph mentioned 20-some-odd years ago, the church faced the same situation, and he used the word problem, and I'm not trying to correct my brother up here, but I don't look at it as a problem. This is an opportunity for all of us to stand up and just to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And when he builds this project, when he does this, none of us will be able to take credit for it. We can all say, look what God did. Look what God did. And so if you're here this morning, I'm not saying we're Israel. We're not at the Red Sea, but our backs are kind of against the wall. And I think there's only one direction to go, and that's forward. And so that's the direction I think God wants us to do. He wants us to go, is move forward. So thank y'all so very much for being here tonight as you process this. We got to process it with faith, because with God, all things are possible. It's all His. Every single bit, it's all His. It's all His. Hey, let's take our time, take this time we have here just to close us, to close our evening out, calling upon His name, okay? As always, as I pray, don't just spectate, just listen. Pray with me, okay? Because our God is so big, He can hear all of us praying at the same time. Y'all ready? Father, thank you so very much for everything that has transpired in this room tonight. And God, I am so grateful to know, God, that you are out in front of us leading us, dear God. Lord, we don't want to get in a situation where we're out in front trying to call the shots, trying to encourage people, or trying to get them to go in a certain direction. Lord, help all of us to make sure you're out in front and that we're following you, because if we're following you, you'll never lead us in the wrong direction. So God, thank you so very much for the opportunity that is ahead of us, dear God. Lord, and as you continue to open doors, God, I pray that we will just say yes, dear God, and we will walk through these doors for the glory of God. Thank you so very much for what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will do. God, do it all for your glory. We love you and bless you, and I pray believing, because I ask all this in the mighty name of Jesus, and all God's people said, amen. God bless you. And remember what Dan said. If you have any questions, see us in the hall, call us, text, email. We're always available. All right? Have a great night.